Welcome to the Silas Bronson Library Hall of Fame's Awards celebration. We've come together today to honor and celebrate those in our community who have exceeded all expectations to make this year's Hall of Fame program one of the best that Waterbury has ever seen. We are here at the Mattatuck Museum today because in some way, this museum is important to all of us. Certainly, many of you have visited the museum before, on one occasion or another. It is the best. And one of the people who makes this museum so awesome is the director. We will have the director, Mr. Robert Burns, officially welcome you. Robert Burns.
Thank you. Somewhere there was a speech, but it's gone now. Thank you. I'm just here to welcome you on behalf of the board and staff of the museum. If you haven't been in the museum in a while, I invite you to take your time as you're leaving, make your way into the galleries, see the exhibitions that we have, vote for Yankees or Red Sox, probably Yankees, on your way out. There's stickers at the front desk, and if you are not on our mailing list and would like to receive our emails about the programs that we're doing here, you can do that at the Visitor Services desk as well. And you can also pick up our program calendar. We have things happening pretty much every day here, so it's too much for me to tell you all the many different things that we're doing here. But please, this is your museum. Let us know what you like, what you'd like to see. We're here for you. This is Waterbury's museum, so please enjoy yourselves here. Thank you all for coming, and it is now my great honor and pleasure to introduce the President of the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Paul Peranowski.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here today on behalf of the City of Waterbury and Mayor Neil O'Leary at this 20th induction ceremony to honor and recognize three men whose contributions to society in general and Waterbury in particular make us all proud. Judge Robert Glass, who broke judicial barriers for African Americans and played such an active role in our civic life here in Waterbury and across the nation before his death in 2001. Ryan Gomes, who not only had a successful NBA career with the Celtics and the Timberwolves, but who has worked hard to see that there is awareness of the dangers of sudden cardiac death among athletes and to be sure that the tools are available where they're needed to save the lives of young athletes. And he continues to give back to the city of Waterbury, or to the Waterbury community, helping young athletes and those who are less fortunate. Phil Benevento, whose devotion to Waterbury is unparalleled as a beloved teacher at all levels of education, a major contributor to the arts and culture in Waterbury, and in his most recent role of city historian, his love of Waterbury and its people shines through everything he does. These three men exemplify what is best about Waterbury. We are proud that they chose to call Waterbury home and grateful that they are such a positive reflection on our community. So to each of them, I say thanks for your contribution and congratulations on being chosen for the Waterbury Hall of Fame. It is a well-deserved honor.
Thank you, Paul. Of course, there is always a group of people to help keep everything in order. People who have a shared interest in the success of an organization or an establishment. I give you the President of the Board of Regents, Timothy DiCarlo.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Board of Agents of the Silas Bronson Library, it is my honor to welcome you today to today's Hall of Fame induction ceremony, as well as to speak about our library and the groups that help bring us here together today. If you haven't been to the library in a while, I would encourage you to stop by for a visit. For the past 2 years, many exciting renovations as well as new programs have been taking place at the Silas Bronson Library, some of which are due in part with the help of the Friends of the Silas Bronson Library as well as the Board of Agents. I'm sure that everyone here is aware that the state of Connecticut is currently without a budget, and many agencies and programs have been faced with steep cuts. The Silas Bronson has not gone unscathed by these cuts. However, it has not prevented us from continuing to reshape, remodel, and redefine our library. Currently, the front plaza is under a massive renovation, which is scheduled for completion at the end of this year. This renovation is being covered by federal and state grants, as well as monies from the Board of Agents. Also, the Silas Bronson Board of Agents, in conjunction with the City of Waterbury and with help from the Leavenworth Foundation, are helping to fund the upcoming remodel of our children's room in the library. Donations taken in by the Friends of the Silas Bronson Library help to sponsor events such as public concerts, children's programming, as well as today's Hall of Fame ceremony. In a time when more and more organizations are forced to do more with less, the Silas Bronson Library has been able to rely both on the Friends and the Board of Agents to help continue the positive change that has been taking place there. So again, I would ask for you to stop by the library to see the positive transformations that have been taking place and continue to take place. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of the improvements around the library. Even as we speak, they're making improvements. And we want to give that credit to the director of the Silas Bronson Library, Rachel Guest.
Thank you, Joyce. I've actually been a member of the Hall of Fame committee for, I'm gonna guess, 8 years now, and even though I've been the director for only 2 years. The Waterbury Hall of Fame is one of the most wonderful committees I've ever been on, because year after year we get to learn about all of the people who have done amazing things in Waterbury or in Connecticut or in the state, and sometimes the world, and one time outer space with our astronaut. I actually, in the past month, I've spoken to 2 people who are not from Waterbury or even from Connecticut who visited and spent a little bit of time getting to know the city, and they both said this city is like no other place. The people in this city are like nothing they've ever seen before. They've never seen a place that has such a strong sense of community and so many talented, remarkable people doing amazing things. And those are outsiders, so it's, that's fabulous. I can stand here all day and tell you how wonderful I think Waterbury is, but I've been here a while, so maybe I'm biased. But it really means a lot. And I think that our 3 inductees tonight really exemplify what that spirit of Waterbury is, whether they came from here originally or whether they came here from somewhere else. We have Judge Glass, who overcame some amazing adversity and excelled in life and brought that spirit to our city. Phil Benevento, who has been such an influence on so many lives. And I'm just going to throw in a little personal anecdote here. Not so much anecdote, but the first time I met Phil was probably in this building about 17, 20 years ago, most likely, working, of course, on a history project together. And Phil, over the years, has always struck me as an incredibly kind person in a way that not everyone can be. And that's, I think, a really important part of why he has been such an influential person in Waterbury. And then Ryan Gomes, you hear a lot about athletes doing great athletic things, which is always wonderful. But Ryan has gone beyond that. He has gone to the world of saving lives, to seeing a need and filling that need in a way that is incredibly important. And all of this is what Waterbury is all about, and that spirit of Waterbury. A couple of important thank yous for today's event. Our librarian, Mary Beth Mason, whom you may have met when you were coming into the room. There she is in the back. Hi, Mary Beth. She has pulled this off for us this year, so big round of applause for all of her work on this. This was her first year of really tackling this head on, and she's done an excellent job of it. The Friends of the Library are serving our refreshments afterwards. They'll be at the back table in this room. And for those of you in this room, this will probably mean something, but our refreshments are provided by the Wilby Culinary students. And then finally, I'm sure you've all probably had a chance to look at the plaques that we have on the front table. These are the frame plaques that will be going into the Waterbury Hall of Fame, which is on permanent view at City Hall on Grand Street. So they will be there for you anytime you want to go by and take a look at them again. And the biographies will also be on the library's website. So thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of the program.
She made my job a little bit easier. She actually went over a lot of things that I too was going to tell you about. But please, one more time, give your round of applause for all of those who have prepared this event for you this afternoon. And now we'll go over the awards for the honorees. Now, what's going to happen is that there are friends and acquaintances here who know the honorees, and we are asking and allowing them to give a few remarks. They will give the remarks, then the award will be given, and then it will be accepted by the recipients. The first honoree and the first award is Ryan Gomes. I'm sure some of the speakers have told you a lot about him already, but we're just so proud to have him, one of our homeboys here, who learned to play in the North End Rec and at the YMCA. As a matter of fact, he was a leader and a guide to my grandsons, and one of my grandsons thinks highly of him, and I want the audience to know that he guided my grandson, and my grandson has character, he's respectful, he's long-suffering, and he's very, very rounded young man. So thank you, Brian Gomes. Ryan Gomes went to school in the local schools, and he joined the National Basketball Association, and we know it as the NBA, and he earned his college degree from Providence. But regardless of his collegiate success, Ryan would later be drafted to the NBA. At 6 feet 7 inches tall, he played small, he played power forward, and sometimes he played center. And Ryan parlayed his career to create the Hoops for Heart Foundation to honor a friend who died of sudden cardiac arrest during a workout. To date, his foundation has provided many, many life-saving automatic electronic defibrillators across the United States and including Waterbury. Ryan helped to create a law in the Connecticut legislature that requires schools to have at least one AED available during the day and for after-school hours. Ryan says, if we could save just one life, then that would have all been worth it. Now, our first remarks for Ryan will be given by, and in this order, and you'll come up as the next one speaks, Andrew Barboza, Rachel Moyer, and Danny Berger. Come for your remarks.
Hello, everybody. Is this on?
No, I don't think it is. Go ahead and speak louder. It's not for me.
Hello? Hello? All right. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Drew Barboza, cousin of Ryan Gomes, one of many cousins that's in this room as well. First, I want to say congratulations to a good man, a good father, and a good husband. So we could deal with a little break right here, have a drink, we'll have fun right now. These things happen. We need a little music, right? A little music right now. We could all got a little dancing and everything. Easy go. Hello? All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Drew Barboza, cousin of Ryan Gomes. So I say cousin, so naturally my relationship with Ryan goes way beyond basketball. But it's impossible for me not to talk about the journey of Ryan Gomes without mentioning basketball or mentioning his desire, and really to say the highs and the lows that he had to go through. I was asked over the phone, what was my first memory of Ryan? Like I said, I'm his cousin. I would say Laurel Street at my Laurel Street apartments with my Aunt Adele at her house. But my first basketball memory, probably Montel Park up in the Bucks Hill section. I was in probably high school. He was in middle school. I can't say I left that park feeling like he was going to be the basketball player that he was, but once again, the highs and the lows and the people who doubted what Ryan could be. My next basketball memory, I have to say I wasn't there for. It was my cousin Sadiq. He had came back from the military, and he went to a freshman game of Ryan's, and he came back, he recorded the game. He was bragging about how good Ryan was, and he hit a couple of three-pointers, he did a couple of things. I wasn't at that game, but that kind of began the fact that I would never miss another Ryan Gomes game. Ryan was a good basketball player, high school included. Sophomore year, he played with Will Stenson, very good basketball player, the late Will Stenson. Junior, senior year, he played with Dimitri Heath, Cedric Hunter. That team was really good. They had some tough matchups, some with Holy Cross, where they went against Darius, some with Sacred Heart, where they went up against Drew and Will Saunders. I mentioned some of these opponents because these were also his teammates come the summer. You heard about Ryan in high school. I think we heard he was about 265, 270, 6'5", and it took Wayne Simone 18 months to convince Tim Welsh to take him. And if you Google the top 10 coaches' rants, you're always going to have a Waterbury kid in that top 10, Jim Calhoun. I think Jim Calhoun and I think Tim Welsh are still thinking Wayne Simone. I do remember being at the Y one time, and somebody said, from Waterbury, I seen that Ryan Gomes play, and he's going to go to Providence, sit the bench for 4 years, and come right back to Waterbury. I say that hurt my heart, but that kind of motivated me to motivate him. It is what it is, and that high and that low is kind of what brings Ryan to where he is. That wasn't wrong. He did come back to Waterbury, and he stays here in Waterbury. College. Waterbury traveled with Ryan Gomes. I can't mention college without mentioning the crew. So Monica, Tasha, Cheryl, Danielle. That was the crew that was going to be at every game, including what would be his family, Teresa, his uncle David, and numerous cousins. I remember those first couple of games where Ryan wasn't getting in, another low. I remember getting the call in Waterbury from his Uncle David. And his Uncle David said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said, "No." He said, 15 points, 8 rebounds, South Carolina. A couple games later, Miami, 31 points. That changed everything. Diaper Dandy of the Week, if you don't know what that is, Dick Vitale. He would select a Freshman of the Year or Freshman of the Week. That right there changed everything. I mentioned college, but there were still the times of being in Providence where you came back home. Ryan, on Friday nights, he would call me, "Drew, I'm coming back into town. I'm coming to Waterbury. Can you find me a gym to work out at?" And I have to thank not only him for wanting to be good in practice, but the people of Waterbury. So he had what would be the rec. He had the Y. He had the Waterbury Boys Club. I have to thank Rob Generali for opening up that gym. We would be in that gym sometimes until 12 o'clock midnight. And you think about this. Ryan was a college student. I was a little bit older, but we weren't partying. We weren't, drinking, having a bunch of fun. We were in the gym working hard. Jay Maya, being at the opening up Bristol Boys Clubs for us to work out. I mentioned being back in Waterbury, the Molly tournament, the Chris Love tournament. These are things that happen in Waterbury every summer. And luckily he was on a team with Devon Parker, and they built a team that was really hard to beat. I was nervous. I would always say, Ryan, please don't get hurt out here. He said, I ain't gonna get hurt. I ain't gonna get hurt. This is my last year playing. It was never his last year playing. Him and William Saunders, Pooh, they kind of matured into the fact of being able to create their own team. And I'll tell you, that team that they created, to this day, probably one of the best teams around. Probably still could compete in any tournament that's around as well. Ryan took his basketball career to New York. We would be traveling from Providence, go out to New York, Dyckman Street tournaments. He was never really the type that's gonna talk a bunch of junk or, really be a hurrah type of person on the court. But he was out there and he was putting up numbers, rebounding, hitting shots. They nicknamed him the Quiet Storm. We would also go out there and participate in Coach Couch's workouts and his league. That league, I'd say, changed Ryan a lot as well. That was the first person who I ever heard say, Ryan, you take the point guard position. And, he excelled at that. Junior year, All-American. All-American in college. A Waterbury local, born and raised, and they're saying that he is one of the best college basketball players in the nation. Blows my mind. Senior year, he averages 21 points, but the magic number, 21-38. Ryan, to this day, is still the all-time leading Providence scorer at 2,138 points. Waterbury, Connecticut. He takes his career into what would be the NBA. I remember the draft. All-American, 2,138 points. He's got to go first round, right? Unfortunately not. The family, the people that loved him, we all gathered at the Holiday Inn right here in Waterbury. And we waited for that one name to be called. And I look out in the crowd and I see some of my aunts, I see some of the older people in my family. And they didn't care whether that name was called 50th. They didn't care if that name was called 1. They didn't know the difference of that. It was the fact that his name got called. A Waterbury person, a local, the highs, the lows. He always remained positive. The kid that they said was too slow, the kid that they said wasn't tall enough. He once scored 35 points in an NBA game. He got 17 rebounds in one NBA game. Don't be mistaken, that guy can still ball. Even his last year with the Defenders, he put up numbers that probably people that were 10 years younger couldn't. There's still an open chapter in Ryan's life, coaching. That's where he is in that place right now. I hope somebody in this room can tell him that he can't do it, because obviously he feeds off of what would be the motivation of people saying that you can't do it. See, this journey is Waterbury. It's about the highs, the lows, the people that just don't think you could do it. But ultimately, this journey is about having strength to say, I'm going to make it for me. Not me, Drew, but Ryan. Ryan never left Waterbury. He has lived in other states, but Waterbury has traveled with him, supported him, and when somebody says, Ryan, where are you from? He says, Waterbury, Connecticut. I congratulate you, Ryan, and I hopefully this Hall of Fame can, lead into more and more positive things. I don't want to talk too much about Hoops for Heart Health, but we have a golf tournament every year, and we hope to get the support of what would be Waterbury as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in Waterbury. And you're probably wondering why I am up here being a part of this presentation. But I can tell you now I have goosebumps. Because in the year 2000, I was a school teacher. And I took everybody's kids out for a fire drill. There's not been a kid that has died in a fire in a school since 1958. And we have all kinds of drills every single month. Well, in the year 2000, my 15-year-old son was playing basketball. He was healthy, he was adorable, he was brilliant, and he was the light of my life. He walked off the court at halftime, collapsed, and he died because there wasn't an automated external defibrillator in that school, a $70 million school. And I thought, how could this happen? How could I let this happen? Why didn't I know how to do CPR? Why didn't I know about an AED? I did not know what the name was. And then I started a mission. I said we were not going to put a headstone on my son's grave until there was an AED in every school in this country. And I got a call from this kid I'm from Pennsylvania. Ryan obviously is from downtown Waterbury, and he said, my name is Ryan Gomes, and I play for the NBA, and I thought, that's great, a baseball player. No. And so I really did not know very much about the NBA, about Ryan Gomes, the Celtics, or any of the teams Ryan played for. And I was recovering from double knee, so I can say it was anesthesia. But anyway, I met Ryan Gomes. We went up to Holy Cross. We donated the first AEDs together. And I cannot tell you how proud about this kid had said, if I ever make it in the NBA, I am going to give AEDs, because my friend Stanley Myers went out to take a run at Morgan State University and never came back because he collapsed from cardiac arrest and there was no AED. Well, a lot of people say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Ryan Gomes has done that. And I'm so proud. People don't know Ryan has given out AEDs in cities throughout the NBA. Every city he's donated an AED to a group or a school that needs one. And he decided with his manager, Wayne Simone, that he was going to write to all the teams that were playing college basketball, 344 teams. And we sent out a letter and we got 14 responses. Basically, we said, if you don't have an AED with your team, an automated external defibrillator, we want to know about it, write us and tell us. 14 replies. And the thing that's unbelievable about that 14, Ryan donated, and we were so surprised. Well, we donated one to Utah State University, and Danny Berger is here this afternoon to tell you how the beat goes on, and Ryan Gomes, when you need that hand, and I will tell you on occasion, I've needed that hand, and I know that if I reach out, Ryan Gomes' hand's gonna be there for me. Danny?
My heart's pumping a little bit, but I think we got a lot of people who know how to save people, but I'm a little nervous. but I am glad to, can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Okay. I am glad to be here in Waterbury. I'm not here for a long time and it's a short stay, but everyone I've run into has been very nice and genuine, and everyone says really good things about Ryan. So it's not hard to talk good about him and everything that he's done. But I appreciate Rachel as well for making this possible. And like she said, I was attending Utah State University, and I was at basketball practice. It was in 2012, and I collapsed on the court, and I went into cardiac arrest, and I was saved by an AED. And that AED was donated by Ryan Gomes. And I got to admit, I haven't been the best at expressing my gratitude to Ryan and everything that he's done. I need to do better at that. But I am extremely grateful. I've been able to play 4 seasons of basketball since that's happened to me. But that's secondary. Basketball is a perk of what that day meant to me and my life being saved. I have goals and I have dreams, family goals, professional goals in other areas besides basketball that I can now reach because I'm one of the lucky ones. And I got lucky because I was saved. I was in the right place at the right time, and there were people like Ryan who care. Ryan's literally a guy that's making the world a better place, and I can't thank him enough for that. I don't want to take too much time, but I just can't explain in words the positives that have come out of going through something like that, going through cardiac arrest, being saved. A whole new world has been opened up to me that I never knew existed. I've been able to meet so many great people like Ryan and like Rachel that have changed my life. And it's going to be something that goes with me forever. And it's something that I wake up every morning and I think about. I think about how lucky I am, how I can now have a second chance at life. And I can't thank everyone enough for that. Anyways, I'd like to close with that and just, again, thank you for having me. And I really am grateful to be out here in Waterbury. So, thanks.
Official Hall of Fame thing. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I had a lot written down, but as you can see, the first speaker hey, for those of you who don't know, he's a DJ, so he's used to just being on the microphone over and over and over again. But no, I would like to thank Andrew, Rachel, and Danny for their kind words, and I would like to thank the City of Waterbury and the Silas Bronson Library for inducting me into the Hall of Fame along with Robert Glass and Philip Benvenuto Jr. I mean, it's a great accomplishment for all of us, and I see I'm up here first, and I was wondering if it's due to seniority because I'm the youngest here. Those guys are a little bit older than me, but I appreciate this award. It means a lot. Like Andrew said, I remember as a young kid going to the Silas Bronson Library with my mom to work on homework assignments and projects, and who would have thought that I'll be 35 today standing here and being inducted into the Hall of Fame when I was just going there to read a few books and get a few things done for the classroom. But it all goes, back to the trials and tribulations that we faced as a family, and all the things that grew to fruition for me to be the person I am through all the help of everybody in the city of Waterbury. I don't think one person goes unnoticed because I'm from this town, and I think we all can celebrate in everyone's enjoyment because we were born here and we achieved great things. And there's a lot of people on that list who helped me get to this place. First of all, it'd be my mother, because it was a single family home, and she did a great job in preparing me and putting me in the right positions to be successful in the classroom. She wasn't a basketball player, so on the court there was other people who had to help me do that. Darius Butler's here. He was a great instrumental piece to that. Wayne Simone, who was my first AAU coach, who had a tremendous deal in my growth as a player. The late Reggie O'Brien, my first high school coach when I really started playing basketball, was in high school. the teachers that I have. Everyone that is crossed paths, they have something to do with my success, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And to give back to the city of Waterbury is to give these kids an opportunity to believe that they can do what I've done, or even better than I've done. So I only want to give back to these kids is give them hope, give them opportunity to say that, I came from these same streets, the YMCA, the North End Rec, the South End Rec, and did the same things that you guys are doing now. But just let them know it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication and a lot of focus. There's a lot of things going on in the world today that you get sidetracked. But like Drew said, when I came home, it was about me doing the best that I can to leave an example for my younger brother, to my younger siblings, and my younger cousins that, you know what, I went through high school, went to college, and things happened the way I wanted to. But your dreams can happen too if you just follow the lead and stick to what you want to do and follow your heart. The last thing is with the foundation. We give a lot of AEDs away, and our main thing is to hopefully put these AEDs in places that they will never have to be used. We check the batteries frequently to make sure that they are up to date and ready to use. And when we donated one to Danny, it was available and ready, and he's here with us today. But that doesn't just go to credit for me. It goes to credit to everyone who's part of the team and Hoops for Our Health. Rachel, Janice, Peter, Brian, Wayne was part of that, the Hoops for Our Health Foundation. And then throughout the community, just giving back. I was successful enough to do well enough in my career with basketball, and I want to give back, like I said, to these kids, to give them the opportunity and show them, like, if they go out and play in Los Angeles or wherever they play, this is where it all started for them. So we want to give back, and hopefully the future of our young youth can be successful just like everyone else. Once again, I thank the Silas Bronson Library, the city of Waterbury, everyone here who came out, drove, flew, walked. You didn't have to take your time out to be here for me and the other two honorees, but we all thank you, and congratulations to the other two gentlemen for receiving this award. Thank you. One thing, I'm sorry, before I forget this, because it'll be on my heart if I forget this. I have to give a special shout out to, of course, I already said my mother, my wife, Danielle, who's been by my side, like Andrew said, since 1999. We're high school sweethearts. We've been married for a long time. I know she's going to ask you, we was married in 07, so whatever, 07 plus 10 years this year. We have two beautiful kids, Rael and Skylar, who are not here. They're at home. But I'd like to thank them. And last but not least, my grandmother, Dell, who is here, who Harley over here, who makes it out. She's been a big supporter of mine. I know through prayer. She hasn't been to all my games, everything, but she's so near and dear to my heart, and I thank her for being here today. And that's the last I have to say about my family.
Are you done? Okay. Where's your mother? Get your mother from
She's not gonna come up here.
You think?
Yeah, she up there with the phone. She's not gonna come up.
Okay, Teresa, will you come up here? We have two things that we want to do today. One is a surprise. Ryan is donating an AED to the Parks and Recreation of Waterbury. So as we see this, let the beat go on, pay it forward. So
Mark Lombardo.
Oh, geez, I said Romano. Doesn't that guy have a TV show? I am so sorry, Mark.
She don't have her glasses.
I have it. No, I don't have my glasses on.
On behalf of Hoops for Our Health, we're going to be donating this defibrillator to the city of Waterbury Parks and Recs. And just to give you guys a heads up, in the future, next year, 2018, we'll be putting an outdoor AED defibrillator at the municipal stadium for the kids who play there for baseball, football, and all those types of things. This is, and Rachel, you have the surprise?
Yes, this is a surprise. The surprise is in honor of, I don't need a
They can't hear you.
Okay. In honor of the library, recognizing one of the Waterbury outstanding heroes to all of us, Ryan Gomes, Hoops for Heart Health, and his mother would like to donate an AED to your library because you don't have one. So congratulations, surprise.
Rachel, guess.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I don't know if they want to take any photos.
So thank you all very much.
You want Mike?
A keeper of the flame for Waterbury's history and a well-respected educator, a dedicated supporter of the local organizations. Mr. Benevito has always encouraged education, brought awareness of Waterbury's history, and knows the importance of cultural enlightenment. He remains committed to the city of Waterbury. The many things are happening and its history. The remarks will be given by Sarah Lee Pennington and Patrick Ospelek, in that order.
I do not play for the NBA. I am so deeply honored and privileged to be the person who nominated Philip Benevento, educator, community advocate for arts and culture, recipient of awards almost too numerous to count, beloved city historian, and most recently, our short-term Italian mayor, to the Waterbury Hall of Fame. Our next speaker will elaborate on Phil's achievements, and I would like to share some personal moments, stories, etc., that will give you some insight into how this man became perhaps the most active and effective advocate for the city of Waterbury. Phil, or as I call him, Philip, and I have been close. Is it not? Have been close to lifelong dear friends since the 7th grade, when he transferred from Russell School to Kingsbury School in 1956. Having to make a shift like this at age 13 into a completely new social environment can be quite challenging or worse. However, Phil won over our class within a couple of weeks. You see, he already was a prolific writer, and as we waited with bated breath in those early weeks of school, he began to turn out mystery stories by the dozens, which he passed out often during quiet class periods, much to our delight and under the steely-eyed gaze of our math and homeroom teacher, Mrs. Sanford, who would have preferred to have us reviewing fractions. We could not believe that this guy had landed in our midst, another Edgar Allan Poe, and Phil and I became fast friends, spending long hours on the phone, discussing current events, social injustice, our classmates, religion, and arguing over our favorite authors of the moment, me preferring Edna Ferber to his Willa Cather. We did not focus on fractions. Math was our least favorite subject. Then it was on to Crosby, where Phil contributed his poetry and prose to the Leaves of Ivy literary magazine, and when it faded almost into oblivion, he resurrected it in our junior year as editor-in-chief, with the guidance of his English mentor, Anna Paul, and the steadfast support of typing teacher, Hedwiga Stulginski. I will mention that I was one of his 3 personally hand-picked assistant editors. Phil was also active in the Spanish Club and in the Future Teachers of America, and he knew even then that his goal was to teach English at Crosby, inspired to do so by his freshman English teacher, Mary Shea. He believed in Waterbury, our place of birth, and in the people of this city. He had a mission and a vision that started in high school, or perhaps earlier, to be part of its positive growth and change. Phil became a favorite of my family, and I got to know Phil's family as well. I will never forget those 6-course Sunday dinners of the best Italian food ever. Then it was off to Yukon. Phil spending 2 years at the Waterbury branch, and I went directly to Storrs. Our friendship continued and our conversations deepened, on the phone and in person. When Phil came to the Storrs campus in 1963, the awareness of the Vietnam War and severe racial inequality in our own backyard was growing and were reflected in our discourse and actions. Phil joined me in the Hartford Tutorial Project, which involved a 5-hour weekly commitment, which he steadfastly maintained for 2 years. He also wrote poetry for the campus newspaper and, of course, deepened his English and history scholarship. Phil did always know how to have a good time and enjoy himself with his many friends, tobogganing down the hills in Fulton Park, multi-generational games of cards, which included my grandfather, good eating and a good drink, reading great novels, listening to great music, going to the opera, taking in the best movies and fine theater. From early on, this was his life as well. After graduating from UConn, Phil immediately began his much decorated career at Crosby, teaching in the English department, teaching alongside Mr. Eugene Colangelo, who became a very close friend, and his former Spanish teacher, Mrs. Helene Rocky. His decision to teach at Crosby was one that has benefited thousands of students and beyond. You believed in your students and created curriculum and programs and individual approaches to address and enrich their lives, both reaching out to those who had given up on themselves as well as to those who excelled. I know that your career inspired my daughter to become a high school English teacher in the Bronx, where she coordinates her English department. You have devoted yourself with the loving support of Barbara to enhancing and creating all that is dear and beautiful and intelligent in our midst. After graduation, I moved away, soon settling in San Francisco. We maintained our close ties and became friends with each other's spouses, visiting regularly through the years. Often when I would come back to my parents' home on Moran Street, and sometimes my sister would be visiting as well, and after a nice drink, my father, sister, Phil, and I, all Crosby grads, would proudly break into our repertoire of Crosby High fight songs. My parents were so proud of Phil, and I would receive regular newspaper clippings from them of his accomplishments and the honors bestowed upon him over the years. When I would contact Phil and ask him, why didn't you tell me about these honors, he would be so modest and unassuming about them all. What always came through strong and clear is Phil's pride of place and his belief that our city and the people therein would take our place in history. Phil, you have a love and acceptance of all that is good in people, a generosity of spirit, and of course, a superb sense of humor and great intelligence. You have supported all the institutions benefiting this city, created unique programs for the arts and cultural life of the Waterbury area, and broadened the knowledge base of our particular history. You will, I know, continue to be a powerful source of creativity, resources, and action. Your vision is unique, and I know of no one who has contributed more to the vitality of and vision for Waterbury. As my mother was fond of saying, Philip, darling, when they created you, they threw away the mold. Thank you.
Okay, how's that? That's good. My name is Pat Ospelek, and I am a Waterbury Public School teacher. It is a pleasure for me to stand before you and help introduce you to my friend and lifelong Waterbury resident, Philip V. Benevento, Jr., as we celebrate his induction into the Waterbury Hall of Fame. Philip's devotion to teaching Waterbury's children and his efforts to preserve the history of this great city makes him worthy of this honor. Teaching was not simply a job to Philip. Teaching is part of his life's blood. That's why after a 30-plus teaching career at Crosby High School, Phil went on to teach at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute through the Waterbury campus of the University of Connecticut, and he continues to give presentations on a subject he loves, the history of Waterbury. Philip V. Benevento is a Waterbury institution and should be lauded as such. As a teacher in the Waterbury Public Schools, Philip made a great impact on his students and an even greater impact on the adults in his life. It is because of his professionalism and penchant for teaching that I modeled my career after his. He has been a mentor to me and to countless others. I first met Phil when I was serving as a substitute teacher, and I had the fortune of working with Phil on the city's English Curriculum Revision Committee. Like Phil, I wanted nothing more than to teach in Waterbury, the very district that fostered my love of learning. Phil Benevento served as a source of information and a source of inspiration for the approximately 10 years we worked together. As a teacher, Phil believed that with the right guidance and support, all children could learn. I saw Phil teach students with strong academic talents, and I saw him teach students with great disabilities. All were valuable in Phil's eyes. He would apply any skill, talent, or tactic to help students become better readers and writers. He would meet with students before and after school. He would work to determine and apply the teaching style that best suited the individual learner, rather than use a one-size-fits-all method of teaching. Throughout his teaching career, Philip motivated even the most reluctant learner. Working with Phil, I often came in contact with former students who cited that Mr. Benevento inspired them to go to college, to become teachers, or just to be lifelong learners. It was common for former students to thank Phil for what he taught them and for just being an excellent teacher. In fact, a former student established a scholarship fund at the University of Connecticut in Phil's honor. It was this talent that I always admired in Phil and sought to emulate. Under his tutelage, I worked to improve my craft as a teacher. In addition, I pursued a position as an English department chairperson, the very position Philip held at Crosby High School. As the head of the English department, Phil recognized the strengths of those in his department, and he put his department members in positions that would lead not only to their success, but also to the success of the students. Phil took great pains to schedule his department so that teachers were teaching material about which they were passionate, which resulted in an infectious excitement in his students. Philip always supported his teachers. He supported my desire to develop a course that enabled a partnership between the English and the history departments, designed to help struggling students. Through his help and support, the English department developed the American Studies program at Crosby High School. Students struggling academically were identified for the program. These students took their English and their history courses through a team-taught 90-minute block. This allowed the teachers in the program to assist those students with the greatest need, while those experiencing little to no difficulty could move forward at their own pace. In the first 2 years, students in the program outperformed their peers on state-mandated standardized tests. Without Philip's vision and support, and I know she's here, without Elaine McCabe's support as principal, this program would never have materialized. Phil did not only act as a mentor to me, in fact, Phil was a mentor to many of our colleagues over the years. He volunteered to help beginning teachers successfully complete the BEST program, Connecticut's induction program for beginning teachers. He devoted countless hours to helping some of Waterbury's newest teachers become Waterbury's strongest teachers. Of those Phil helped while I worked with him, 2 have become school superintendents, 2 others have become school administrators, and 2 of us are department chairs. Because Philip valued Waterbury students and valued teaching in Waterbury, he fostered in us a similar desire and passion. It is because of Philip that I wouldn't consider working anywhere else. Philip V. Benevento's resume is chock full of examples of how he has benefited Waterbury and how he has enriched our community. However, his teaching career has benefited Waterbury's greatest resource, children. His impact on children and on his fellow teachers is immeasurable, and it is for this that we honor Phil here this afternoon. And it is with that I welcome to the podium Philip V. Benevento, Jr.
Am I viable? Okay. I would like to thank the Waterbury Hall of Fame Committee and the Silas Bronson Library Board of Agents for naming me to the Waterbury Hall of Fame. It is very gratifying and much appreciated honor. It is a pleasure to be included with fellow inductees Justice Robert Glass and Ryan Gomes. I also wish to express my thanks to the local media for their support and help in promoting my local history projects, especially Robin Adams and Mike Patrick of the Republican America newspaper, as well as Ed Flynn, Larry Rifkin, and Barbara Davitt of our local radio station, WATR. Thanks to Sarah Lee Bizdovich Pennington for nominating me to the Hall of Fame, and a special thank you to her and Patrick Osblick for their very kind and gracious remarks. I wish to recognize family and friends who made a special effort to come here today in support of my induction. Sarah Lee and her husband, Tom Hers, who traveled here from San Francisco, my brother, Louis, and my brother-in-law, Patrick Duffy, who came here from Florida, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Morris and Emily Kiley, who made the trek from South New Jersey, and my former student, Louis Aberdeen, and his wife, Annetta, who traveled here from Washington, D.C. I also wish to extend my gratitude to all of those who supported my projects. Most of all, my wife, Barbara, for her help, good counsel, and participation in numerous school activities with me. I am also indebted to the City of Waterbury for the wonderful public education that they provided me and my brothers, all of whom graduated from that great classical high school, Crosby High. Of course, when we graduated, Old Ivy was housed in a massive yellow brick building on East Main Street, where the police station now stands. While a goodly number of Crosby grads have been inducted into the Waterbury Hall of Fame, I think that my induction as a member of the class of 1961 is unique. I am the fourth person to be inducted from that class. Sarah Lee for her work in social justice for the gay community in California, Dr. William Benson for his work on the treatment of diabetic retinopathy, and Sandra Burke for her work on coronary heart blockage and heart failure. Not only we were in the same graduating class, but we were assigned to the same homeroom where we were seated alphabetically: Benevento, Benson, Bizdovich, and Burke. I owe my love to literature, well, it began, I think, with Miss Molly Buckley, a woman who lived next door to me with her two sisters. They were maiden ladies, the Mrs. Buckley, and they had me come to mow their lawn. I used to mow it in 7th and 8th grade, no middle school then, and also through high school. And Miss Molly Buckley, the middle sister, thought I should be educated. So, and she thought I should read. She must have found something wanting in me. So, after I would mow her lawn and edge it and thin the pachysandra and chop down the forsythia and whatever else she would have me come in and sit down, have a glass of lemonade, and say, in her library, and say, "Philip, I think you should read this book. And when you come back, we can discuss it." I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I wasn't much of a reader. And also, I would get this tome, okay? It was those books that used to be boxed in those, came boxed to the Heritage Edition books and so forth. She said, "This is by Charles Dickens." I said, "Okay." So I went home and I read Barnaby Rudge. I said, "God, this book is 650 pages long." So I trudged through it and so forth and so on, and finally, when it was finished, I went back and I said, Miss Buckley said, "Philip, did you finish reading it?" I said, "Yes, Miss Buckley, I did." And we would have a discussion about it, and I would tell her what little I understood that I had read. She said, "Okay, you're now ready for another one. This one is called Nicholas Nickleby. It's 1,000 pages long." I said, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? But I waded through. I think it took quite a while before I got back to go over it. She would ask, how are you doing? I said, okay, I'm getting through it, Miss Buckley. And so we would go back and we'd discuss that. After that, she decided must be time for French literature. So she gave me Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which also lasted 1,000 pages. What I didn't know then was that writers were paid by the word. And much of the stuff there could have been skipped over. But I was not aware of that, of course, at that tender age. So I thought I had to read every word. So I read that, I brought it back, and then she thought I was ready for Russian novels. So she gave me Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina to read. And then I was trying to keep track of the characters because they all have these long, hyphenated Russian names that seem to interchange and so forth. And I kept looking back to discover who was who and so forth. But I must say, she did present a challenge that made me a much better reader. In my freshman year in high school, I had Miss Mary J. Shea, who was a wonderful teacher. It was because of her that I became a teacher of English. And she gave us a book called The Magic Circle. It was a poetry book, and it was edited by Louis Untermeyer, and I loved the poems in it. As a matter of fact, I went down to Mercy Boyd's bookshop in Waterbury and bought an edition of it for myself. And because of that influence, and because of her inspiration, I started writing poetry, and I have been writing it ever since. So I completed my degree at the University of Connecticut in 1965 in English education, got my certification, applied for a position in Waterbury, received a call telling me to come down and see Dr. Wallace, the superintendent of schools, to sign my contract. So down I went, but I never got to see Dr. Wallace. Instead, the formidable Miss Benham, the executive secretary, who blocked anyone from seeing Dr. Wallace, was there. She looked a bit like Miss Grundy in those old Archie comics, her hair back in a bun, wearing a smock and so forth, and looking at me with a little bit of disappointment in her face. And she said, well, we have openings everywhere. We have openings at Kennedy High School, Wilby High School, and Crosby High School. Where would you like to teach English? I thought, well, if I go back to Crosby, all those former teachers will be looking over my back. I don't think so. And I thought, well, Kennedy is brand new. It just opened, 1965. That's what I'll pick. I said, Miss Benham, I think I'll teach at Kennedy High School. She said, everyone wants to teach there. You'll teach at Crosby. I thought, well, lady, why did you ask? So I signed the contract, and then she looked at me and she shook her head and she said, try to do a good job. Well, I hope I have. Okay. I believe that literature mirrors our humanity, expressing our passions, successes, and disillusionments. I wanted my students to look into that mirror and to see their reflections in it. The study of literature is more than listing the characters and understanding the plot. I wanted my students to feel and understand the greatness of literature and how it reveals who we are and how we think. It relates the history of what we call the human race through stories and plays and poetry. In the end, it should be exciting, and I looked upon my role as teacher to instill that excitement in them. I hope that I was at least partially successful in my quest. Through the years, it has given me pleasure to know my approach resonated with some of my students, a number of whom have become friends, and I'm happy to say that some of them are here this afternoon. Being recognized for my teaching is personally the most satisfying part of today's acknowledgement, but I realize that my promotion of the city of Waterbury as city historian also contributed to my induction. So how did I get interested in the history of Waterbury? I wasn't particularly interested in the history of Waterbury. I was ignorant of it. But Barbara and I used to go to this little antique shop, and we used to do business there. The woman's prices were very reasonable, and she had bought out a home, an estate. And she said, Phil, here's some postcards. You can have them. I don't deal in postcards. I said, okay. They were Waterbury postcards, and they were turn of the century, last century, early 1900s. And I looked at them. I said, what? Wow, no kidding. So that created my interest. And so I started to study the history of Waterbury, became more and more involved in it. Finally, I applied for a sabbatical, which I was granted one year, and I was able to take that time to take a course in writing scripts for historical works. I was able to read the major histories, Anderson and Bronson and Pape. I went and I read church histories. I went to friends, like my friend Bob Brown, who was here, who lived in Waterville. I said, teach me about Waterville. We would go trekking through Waterville. I learned waterways. I learned so, I wish I could remember all I learned. So, at any rate, my final project was to put it all together into a slideshow. So I took all these pictures. I taught myself how to do it. You know those old-fashioned carousels that held around 140 slides? So I had 2 of them. And the show was so long that I had to show it in sections because each was 90 minutes, 140 slides followed by another 140 slides. And it was what I called a walk around Waterbury, focusing mostly on the time between 1880 and 1920, but also including much more than just that. And it became popular, and people actually came to see it, which surprised me. I used to say to Barbara, I said, well, okay, I've shown it a couple of times. No one else will come. That's it. But every time, people showed up, and more people showed up. And I started doing this when I was about 49 or 50 years old. I even had a following. I had groupies. They were in their 70s and 80s, but my groupies none the same. So one year, I got a call from the Lutheran church, and they said they were having a tea. And they would wonder if I could come and show some of the slides. I said, okay, I'll come and show them. So evidently, a different Protestant church hosted the other Protestant churches once a year. It was an annual tea. It was the turn for the Lutheran church, you may recall it, on the corner of Cook Street and Grove Street. And so I went to it, and I presented the slides, and one little lady came up afterwards and said to me, Mr. Benevento, I want you to know that this is the second time I've seen this show. I said, oh, thank you very much. Another woman looked at her and said, well, this is the third time I've seen it. And then another little lady looked and she snorted and said, it's the 4th time I've seen it. Well, serving as city historian has been very interesting. A lot of interesting people I met locally from the area, also people who are working on interesting projects, researchers, historians, artists, and all sorts of people that I learned so much from. So it was not only a gift of giving, it was a gift of enrichment for me. So I hope, let me just finish up here and say that I am thankful again to having served as the position of city historian, having been an educator in Waterbury, and I want to thank thanks for your attention, and thanks again to the Waterbury Hall of Fame for bestowing this honor on me. Thank you very much.
The next honoree, Judge Robert D. Glass. First African-American juvenile court judge and the first African-American justice of Connecticut Supreme Court. I'm proud to stand up here and say this because I happen to know Judge Glass personally. He was a wonderful, wonderful, encouraging man. Judge Glass noted and credited his mom for his success, and I'm sure you've heard this quote over and over, and he said, she took a poor plantation boy and made him into a judge. The remarks will be given by the Honorable Charles Gill, the Honorable Maurice Mosley, the Honorable William Sullivan, after which we will all sing the Black National Anthem, which is Lift Every Voice and Sing. It will be sang by Keisha Teasley and William Keller, and Thanks Yusuga will accompany her as the pianist, and they're from Kennedy High School, followed by the acceptance of the award by Judge Glass's daughter, Rosalind Glass. So remarks.
Thank you all of you organizations, wonderful people, givers to the community. It's my pleasure, Judge Charlie Gill from Litchfield, from New Haven originally. Now, I want to thank all of you, and I do courageously and sincerely, because what you've done here today is magnificent for families. It's a reward for their existence, and one of the marvelous things they have done. Now, I've always looked up to Bob Glass. Of course, I had to. He was a foot taller than I was. But I love the name Justice Robert Glass, because justice is just what he was all about. I remember once I asked him to speak at the Connecticut Junior Republic, which at the time was a home for boys who were in trouble and so forth and so on, to give it some sort of speech. And of course, he stood on the stage is much higher than this one, and he was just seated there. And once he was introduced, he stood up. And when he stood up, he looked like he was not 6'7" or 6'9", but like 9'9". And he's looking at all these kids in uniforms, right? And he started down the line like this. And they're all going, "What's this? What's he doing?" He said, "I just wanted to know if I had sentenced any of you here." And then he went on, which was the theme of his life and so many other lives, using Sammy Davis's great book called Yes, I Can. Yes, I Can. And he told the students about this book and to read it. And he said, you know, when you guys are sitting and looking out the window and you see all these middle-class white guys running by in their shorts exercising, do you know what they're after? They're after what you already have. Youth. Youth. Now, this is not a sad day about our friend Bob Glass. It certainly was a sad day when I carried him to his final place of rest. But that's the past. It always lingers, of course. But today is to be happy, because we had him with us so long, and he left us so much. Benjamin Mays, who was the final eulogist at his funeral, said the following words about Martin Luther King: "It isn't how long one lives, but how well. It's what accomplished for mankind that matters." And what did Bob Glass leave us? Wow. He left the lessons of law properly applied, honestly, humanely, and fairly. He left us his understanding of people. He left us his tolerance of all types of people, and used the soft glove of compassion rather than the steel claw of hatred and revenge. One example I will give you: I was sitting in his courtroom one day waiting for him to finish, and he had just sentenced a young black man to prison for 5 years. As soon as he imposed the sentence, the young black man went berserk. He struggled with the marshals and was fighting, wanted to run around the courtroom. They finally subdued him in front of Glass and brought him up to the bench again, figuring Glass was going to hammer him. But that didn't happen. Glass said to him, "Let him be. The boy is going to prison for 5 years. That's enough." The young man suddenly calmed down, and he started crying. He said, "I'm sorry, Your Honor." Bob just shook his shoulders and said, "I understand, youngster." He says, "By the way, you should read a book by Sammy Davis Jr. called Yes, I Can." He says, "Get a nice young man, a decent man, to walk your life with you." Now, I got to recognize one other young man who's in the audience today. He's on the road to greatness, too. His name is Robert Arrington. His great-grandfather was a great guy, too. Great-grandfather, called Justice Robert Glass. So would Robert please stand here? That's enough, Robert. I was there when Bob Glass was sworn in as a Supreme Court Justice. And I'll never forget his words. They were as brief as mine are going to be. He said the following words. He said, "You know, my mother had a dream, the American dream, and I am her American dream." Thank you all for helping out and honoring Bob.
Paying honor to God, dignitaries, all the honorees, Phil, Ryan, and especially to all the youth in the audience. It's a pleasure and privilege for me to give remarks about Justice Robert D. Glass. He was my mentor and a role model for me, and it's surreal that I'm serving in his courthouse today. We talked often, and he spoke at our Granville program many times. And I remember one time he was talking about his mother and the discipline that she gave out to him. And he said that if a parent or a mother gave that type of discipline today, he would put them in jail. Her response was, "It worked, didn't it?" Judge Glass was always tough on me, and I appreciated it because he wanted me to be a good lawyer. And I remember one instance, it was maybe about 30 years ago, it was 100 degrees out, and it was before they put air conditioning in the Kendrick Avenue courthouse. And my brother and I always got these tailor-made suits. I had a tailor-made dungaree three-piece suit with patches. Sharp. It was 100 degrees, so I decided to leave my coat at the office and just went over with my vest and shirt and tie. He reamed me out. He told me, "Never, ever, ever come back in here without your coat on." But that's the type of discipline Justice Glass and his generation bestowed on us. You know, Judge Glass understood what I refer to as the race game or skin color. The race game is always a 600-pound gorilla in the room and in our environment. He understood that there was no biological basis to race whatsoever. It's just a game people play to put you in a caste system, and certain people will get economic and social benefits and privileges to some people. He understood that at a very early age. He didn't go to school in Alabama until he was 10 years old. Also, folks with our skin color couldn't go to law school in Alabama. There's a friend of mine by the name of Fred Gray. When you check his history books out, Fred Gray was Martin Luther King's lawyer. He's still living. We're together every summer, and he tells a story about when the Supreme Court made states like Alabama have youngsters with our skin color go to law school. What they would do, Alabama would pay youngsters to go out of state to law school. And the reason for that is they were believing that if they went north to law school, they would see how it was up north and never come back to Alabama and to those states. That was the irony. But Fred Gray came back and he sued everybody and every institution that he could. Justice Glass understood the race game. He understood that it was only one race, that's the human race. He treated everybody the same. He made sure that everybody had equal value. Everybody has equal value. And his message to the young folks is education and grit is the ace and the joker in the race game. If you get the education, nobody can take it away from you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow inductees, not fellow inductees, but the inductees, it is a privilege today for me to stand here this afternoon to honor a great judge and an extraordinary human being, the late Justice Robert D. Glass. Throughout his life, Justice Glass continually demonstrated the many qualities that were greatly esteemed by his fellow human beings. His courage, his fairness, and his integrity earned him the respect of all who knew him. I first learned of Justice Glass when I was working for Gerald Lamb, then the State Treasurer of the state of Connecticut. Mr. Lamb told me he was trying to get an appointment to the bench for a friend of his. That friend was Justice Glass, and his appointment as the first black juvenile judge in the history of the state of Connecticut was announced shortly thereafter. I did not know Justice Glass then, nor had I met him until about 13 years later, when we both served as we were assigned to judges in the Danbury Superior Court and in Waterbury over the ensuing years. And I got to know him quite well. We became good friends and remained so until Bob died. No one can ever say that when they appeared in Justice Glass's court that they did not get treated fairly, with integrity, with respect, and with compassion. Justice Glass truly loved the law, and he was outstanding in it at what he did as a lawyer, as a trial judge, as a Supreme Court justice, and as a judge trial referee when he retired. While he was an outstanding jurist, he was an even more outstanding person who cared deeply for his family, his country, and his church. There's an old saying that you should treat everybody the way you wish to be treated yourself. If there's one person who epitomized that saying, it was Justice Robert D. Glass. At all times, his attitude and demeanor never changed. He was always a gentleman. Webster defines class as high-quality elegance. But if anybody ever asked me to define class, the first person I would think of would be Justice Robert D. Glass, and I would define him as the essence of class, because you will never meet another person in or out of the legal profession with more class than he had. In 1987, there was an opening on the Connecticut Supreme Court, and the rumor was that a young judge was in line for the appointment. Some friends from Waterbury contacted Governor William O'Neill and asked them to interview Robert Glass for the position. Robert Glass went to Hartford to meet with the governor, and they spoke to him for about an hour. He left the office in Hartford, the governor's office in Hartford, and returned to Waterbury. But before he got here, there was a call for him to call the governor's office as soon as possible. The rest is history. He became the first black justice on the Connecticut Supreme Court. He started off in life as a poor black youth in Alabama and rose to be a member of Connecticut's highest court through hard work and determination. Nobody, and I mean nobody, ever gave Justice Glass anything.
My father was a great man, and I am tremendously proud of his accomplishments. But to me, in my home, in our home, he was just my dad, and that's how I always remember him. On the weekend before my father's passing, he was in his living room with me and my daughter Marie, who's sitting back there. We knew that Marie was pregnant, but it was too early in her pregnancy to determine the sex of the baby. Marie and I were just chatting about our preference and possible names. My parents and friends call me Lynn, so I even suggested that we could name the baby Lynn, whether it's a boy or a girl. With that, my father laughed, his big booming laugh, and said, "The baby is going to be a boy and name him Robert." Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you my grandson, Robert, for the second time. Although Robert never met his great-grandfather, I know my parents would have been so proud of the young man that he is becoming. His goodness, faith, and his determination to succeed are traits that remind me of my dad, and I am grateful, for my grandson's sake, that Robert Davis Glass led the life that he did, overcame all that he did, achieved all that he did, and left us this great legacy. It's an honor and a blessing to be the daughter of such a man. On behalf of our family, thank you.
My. I told you this would be one of the best Hall of Fame celebrations we have ever had. At this point, we'd like to ask Robert Burns to come up with remarks, if he's around. I know he's on the program, so I was just trying to follow my instructions here. After the event, we have Friends of the library in the back. Let's give them a round of applause. They always prepare. The Friends of the Library always prepare our refreshments, and they're always so delicious. We're very grateful to have all of you join us this afternoon, and we hope that you'll visit the Silas Brunson Library because they're improving every day. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your weekend.